Hey, thank you for joining us here at the LuAnn Academy teleconference today. And I'm delighted that you've either joined us live or you are watching later. And I know that in the ways that energy works, no matter what time you're watching, we are all connected. And I'm super excited about today. I'll take a moment though, introduce myself in case we've never met before. My name is LuAnn Cibik, and I am the administrator for the LuAnn Academy, and I'm super honored to be that. What that means is that I just help in all the different certification programs with the administration and the websites and the Facebook pages and just kind of help everything continue to move along. And I hope that I can be a resource for you also in continuing either your education or in your business. So anyway, that's who I am. And today we have an exciting topic that really relates to every one of our certification programs. And so if you're new to the LuAnn Academy, and the LuAnn Academy is a new concept, right? It's something that we've just been talking about maybe since our conference last year. But it's about every certification program that Denise Lynn has, which she has a lot of them. And even more than the ones that we've listed on the website, just because the ones that she did back in the 1980s, 90s, we don't have a way to connect with all of those people. So until we do, but as we do, those people are included in our family too. But who all is in the LuAnn Academy? Well, it's interior alignment, feng shui, and space clearing, as well as elemental space clearing. It's soul coaching. It's gateway dreaming practitioners, soul coaching or card readers, past life coaches certified by Denise. Gosh, I know I'm probably forgetting something. Clutter clearing. Dorena was going to remind me of that one in a moment. Denise, the LuAnn method of clutter clearing, and her new Red Lotus Mystery School graduates. So those are our peeps, right? That's our family. And all of us have certain unique skills, talents, things that we've learned as a way to assist our clients. But the core of what we are doing is we're all about assisting clients. And with Denise's wonderful way that she instills in us to honor the client, their reality, what's right for them, that they know what is perfect for them. They know that within themselves. And our mission is to assist them in manifesting that. And it's either through feng shui or coaching or understanding their dreams or working with messages from cards or through sacred ceremony or through clutter clearing. And clutter clearing is sort of a key component in most of these systems in terms of whether it's physical clutter or recognizing other kinds of clutter in their lives. And so it felt like this could be a fantastic topic to allow all of our practitioners to understand a little bit more about clutter clearing, organizing, feng shui, the differences. If you have signed up for the Interior Alignment newsletter, it is, I can't remember if it's out yet or soon to be out. If it's not already in email boxes, it's soon to be out. And talking about the difference between those things. But on today's call, I know that our expert, Dorena, is going to be sharing and shedding some light on those different things. Dorena has been a long time, and she wants me to say former professional organizer, because she does so much more now. Her company is called Space Doula, and she works with people not only where she lives in North Carolina, but all over the world in helping understand their spaces better. And I know she's here today to offer her rich experience in working hands-on with people. She's been in the trenches. She's been there helping people clear out stuff and hands-on, not just saying how to do it, but hands-on. And so she understands what people go through, the emotions of it, and why sometimes when you clutter clear for somebody, it might not work because you might need to add those additional elements to it. So anyway, I've done enough talking, and Dorena, I would like to turn it over to you. Welcome, Dorena.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. just a little bit of background about me, because then it filters into where I'm at today. I've worked in people's homes professionally for over a decade, and it started out decorating. And there's a fun story that kind of weaves its way through this. I wanted to be an interior designer like forever ago, 30 years ago when I was in college. And I went to my academic advisor. I wasn't at a school that offered that. And so I'm like, oh, I want to do this. And I went and talked to the dean, and they said, well, you can create your own major. And I said, okay. So I sat down with them, and they said, you need to take art classes in the Mason Gross School of the Arts and then some home economics, and you'll have your own major. And I said, that's too hard. I'm not creative. And so I went on to business school. And then fast forward, I had the opportunity to be a partner in a decorating company, and I was the muscle in the company. I was the one who carried the ladder, I carried the paint, I moved the furniture around, and my partner was a creative one. I did that until she moved back home to Pennsylvania, and I said, I can't do this by myself. I shut down my business, and she said, you should always be a professional organizer because it's a thing I do so intuitively. So I started an organizing company, and I did that for a while, and then I very quickly realized that I was just putting people's stuff in a box. And I was but it was not, I could make their things look pretty, but I wasn't going underneath. And every time I wanted to go deeper with them, I got big stop signs because they had called me in to make their space look pretty and not really go into what was underlying that. So I went from there to clutter clearing. And I said, I'm just going to focus on the clutter clearing. I am a certified clutter clearing coach through Denise. And I really focused on that because I wanted to get to getting rid of all of the stuff. I was all about letting go and letting go. And then I took another dive, and that is when I connected with LuAnn, and I went through the interior alignment program and brought in the feng shui and the space clearing. And that's been magical because what I have found is that that's the piece with the clutter. If you just come in and you clear, what looks like clutter to me may not be clutter to you, and vice versa. And so I'm going to tell like a 30-second story, which I alluded to. I have this theme of not being creative. As you saw, I opted for business school instead of design school. I opted for professional organizing. I shied away from it. And I feel like we all need that second set of eyes because when we're in our own stuff, we don't see it. But I've been working so much. I work a lot with entrepreneurs in their space. And so when I look at the Bagua and I look at what area of the home relates to what area of your life, I'm like, oh, they all pertain to our business, because as entrepreneurs, those two are like all you can't be one without the other. And I always think of the entrepreneur journey as that thing that is like the fast track to self-development and self-awareness. And so I've been working with people, and I've been talking in my business about the children and creativity area. And I walked past my dining room, which is where we are at the moment, and I see this vase of flowers sitting on my dining room table that perfectly matched everything in the space. And I was like, oh, wait, that's been sitting there for 12 years. And then I took it one step further and said, where did it come from? I was like, oh, my former business partner actually designed it for me because I could not do that myself. I was like, oh no, I'm not creative enough to do that. So she made it for me. And I realized in that moment that I had anchored my belief that I was not creative in that flower arrangement. And the only way I knew that was because I was like, oh, I'm in the children and creativity area. And then I moved it. And I'm actually a two-step person. A lot of times with my clients, I'm like, oh, you need to get it right out the door. But I needed a little bit more space. So it's now in my garage. And then from my garage, it will go in the car, and then I'll donate it. But the space that has opened up when I moved that was just phenomenal. So I attribute that all to knowing feng shui and the space clearing and the energy piece, because that allows me to see what is clutter. And then it allows me to go deeper into the beliefs underneath, so there was that energy pattern that I could shift. So
I love that story. I absolutely love that story. And I love it because, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. It's not like you aren't sensitive to the things in your space. But yet when we are in our own space, it might be tough to just, like, we get used to things. And I know everybody's like looking behind me and going, my God, LuAnn, you need Dorena to come help you clutter clear. But here's the deal. Everything that is back there on my shelves, while for some people that might feel like way too much stuff, every object I have here is something that uplifts me and makes me feel better, right? It confirms something wonderful for me, whether it's a card from a friend or something from a course that I was in. They're all my power objects. So for some people, as Dorena was saying, some people might come in and go, wow, that's clutter. But for the person there, it could be their uplifting things. In Dorena's space, I'm sure her flower arrangement didn't look like clutter. To anybody else, it looked like, oh, doesn't that look great in the room? But when she investigated it, that arrangement confirmed a belief that she no longer wanted to have. And so she was releasing it. Dorena, can you talk to people a little bit about, just go a little deeper about the whole clutter clearing coaching process and really talk about why that's different than organizing?
Man, organizing, and it's interesting because I actually had some pushback from an organizer who I went to connect with recently, and she said, oh, we do the same thing. And I was like, oh, okay. Yes and no. So when we go in to organize, we really are trying to we want to make things look pretty. And again, clutter is, we can't get underneath that. Like, we have so many tools that the LuAnn Academy has offered us to allow us to see what the clutter is and to see whether it is or not. Because like you said, your office, and I've like had the joy and experience of being in your office, and it's like I could sit there all day and it feels wonderful. And so for somebody to come in and organize and say, oh, those shelves aren't quite organized, we need to stack things left to right, and they need to be in this order. That's not for us, as organizers. It's hard to see that or hard to know that it's clutter until we go deeper. I told you this by email, but if it's okay, I'll share the story about the sock puppet.
Yes.
This has happened twice, and it happened in my training where, for those who may not have been through the interior alignment program, part of what I do before and what I was taught, before I go in to do a feng shui consult, I'll do a long distance space clearing. And I use a map that the person has hand drawn of their space, and I'll use my pendulum to clear the space and to pick up on any negative energies. And the very first time I did that, I was with LuAnn, and I had gone to yoga class with her, and we'd had a long day of teaching, went to yoga class, went back to my Airbnb, and I did this clearing on the home that I was to go to the next day with LuAnn. It was going to be my my teaching, it was my coming out into everything I had learned. So it was my client, and so when I went through a series of questions, I found a spot of negative energy, and I used my pendulum through a series of questions. And what I came to is that there was a red purse that was holding back this person, that was holding negative energy. And I went into LuAnn's office the next day, and I said, LuAnn, I got that there's a red purse underneath her bed, and it has negative energy. And she's like, yeah, okay. Like, it was perfectly normal that I would come to that. And not being I don't consider myself, actually, let me shift that. I, at that time, had not considered myself an intuitive. And she's like, okay. And we spent the morning teaching. We went to this home. And as we're walking up the stairs, I said to her, LuAnn, if there's a red purse under that bed, I will never doubt myself again. She's like, okay. In the beautiful LuAnn way, like, okay. So we go, and sure enough, there was a red, shiny patent leather red, not just red, purse underneath the bed that had a lot of significance for this person and a lot of pain in it, some energetic that needed to let go. But as an organizer, if I would have come in, it actually was in a bin. with other purses, and it looked organized. So I would have never known that unless I had energetically picked up on that. So I hear my own voice, and I hear LuAnn's affirmation in my head constantly: you will never doubt yourself again. And then like her beautiful smile and her like, I knew you could do this. And so recently I've had other experiences, but not quite as dramatic as that one, until just a week ago. And again, I came to a space, and in that space, picked up negative energy that was in a shelf in the bedroom. So what I do is, after I do this privately, and I have a session with a client, and I ask questions like, oh, so tell me about this space, knowing that this space I had already picked up on some negative energy. And so we're in the bedroom. I'm like, so tell me about what's on that shelf. And I had already gotten that there was a sock on the shelf. And they start to show me, I use either FaceTime or some video conferencing where they can actually show me the space. And they start showing me, I was on their phone, showing me the shelf. And I'm thinking, oh, Dorena, you got this one wrong. Like, this shelf isn't someplace you keep socks. And I would not have believed myself, except on my piece of paper the day before I had written down negative energy, smaller than a bread box, article of clothing, socks. So they're showing me what's on the shelf, and it's not clothing related. It was little tchotchke type things from their bedroom. And then they pan down a little bit and they say, oh, and this is a space clearing spray you made me. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I'm like, well, what's that next to it? And they said, oh, it's a sock puppet. And I was like, oh, okay. Digest that for a moment. And I said, well, where did it come from? And he said, oh, my daughter made it for me for Father's Day. And felt like that was a happy memory. But I was emboldened because I knew that I was never going to doubt myself again. I knew that I had picked up on negative energy so specifically that it was a sock in a place that you wouldn't expect a sock. So I was able to push further because of that. And I was able to say, can you tell me a little bit more? And can you tell me a little bit more? Until we unraveled the circumstances behind it and invited him to have a conversation with his daughter. And how life-changing I think that can be for them. So that's the magic, that when you organize, you miss a little bit of the magic.
You do. Hi, my God, I love that story. And so let's talk a little bit, and I don't want to make people think that organizing isn't important, because organizing is important. It's just that maybe it's the piece that should come after the clutter clearing, right?
Yes.
And so the clutter clearing is something that a person needs to do for themselves. And I was just listening to Denise's radio show the other day, and somebody asked about clutter clearing for the other people in their home, that they had clutter cleared their stuff, but how do they help the people that also live in their house release their stuff that's all over the house? And as Denise said, she goes, I wish I had magic words to tell you about how to do that, but I don't. And I was thinking, maybe you've worked in this a long time, Dorena. If you could share some of the things that you have counseled your clients with, or ways that you've helped them step through the clutter clearing process, and then we'll talk a little bit more about organizing. So how do you help your clients with that?
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it is, you can't change. I think Kohrs is the one who says a lot. The only time you can change somebody is when they're in diapers. And so you can't go, and especially with children, this I always feel like it's a little bit of a tender space, like how much do you organize your children's home? And I will guilty on that one, or clutter clear it. And so it's like, it's honoring somebody else. And so it is. And what I think I have found, and I know I've heard this from other people in the clutter clearing world, is that when you start taking care of your own stuff, it is, again, there's magic, and the people around you start to respond to that. I think when, what I bring in now is when I look at clutter from in somebody's home, I look at where it is. And I look at where it is in terms of the bagua, because that helps me know where there might be some deeper issues and how to approach it. For instance, I was actually working with a professional organizer recently, and her house is impeccable except in her wealth area. So it's important to know, for me, it's important to know kind of where that clutter is helpful. And then it's getting started. It depends upon how much it is, because clutter can, like we've talked about, can be one thing or can be a room full of stuff. And so I like people to understand where it comes from, because there's always that rub of, oh, I want to keep it, I want to hold on to it, and all the resistance comes up. And I feel like when they better understand why their clutter, what it represents, it's so much easier to let go. Like that awareness, because what I feel like we're doing is we're shifting the energy. Like there's these energy patterns in the clutter, and when we start to shift them, it changes the energy patterns and it allows them to become aware of these. And then as they start changing, their energy changes, which means the people around them are affected by that positively. And then, like I said, I feel like they naturally start to shift. So it's like, don't even worry about them. Just worry about yourself. The other thing, this I talked with clients a lot about when their kids' room is, a lot of people are like, oh, my travel and helpful people area is my kids' rooms. There's nothing I can do with it. And so what I like to look at all the time is like the opposite end of the house, because, we're all about the balance. And so what I notice a lot of times is that if this area they can't do a lot about, well, let's look at this area across the way and let's look at what the clutter is there and let's try to balance the energy. So that is a way too, and talking to them about the resistance, about what is going to come up. It's actually preparing them ahead of time. I had a client the other day who, it was interesting how they had this table bumped up right next to, and when you look at it from a broader perspective, like you said early on, we don't see it when we're in our own space, we don't see it so much. But when you can have this bird's eye view, and I saw how this table was just shoved up so close, and I kept inviting him to move it down. And he was like, no, I can't do that. And so then we'll talk about the resistance, about how that comes up. And a lot of times that is our ego, and our ego wants to keep us safe. So to be able to say, it's okay to talk yourself through that. So I think a lot of times part of that clutter clearing process is preempting the resistance, letting them know it's going to come and what it's about, so that when they do start feeling the resistance to letting something go, they can say, oh yeah, that was me trying to keep myself safe. That's my ego popping in, and really keeping in mind, which we haven't talked about yet, is that intentionality piece. So even and especially in the clutter clearing is I say over and over again, we're letting go to make space for. Mm-hmm. And so my dining room table right now behind me is empty. There's nothing there yet, but it's space to create.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see what you do create. You have to send a picture when you create it. That'll be.
I will. I don't know what it's going to be yet. It's percolating.
So one of the ways we define what clutter is in all of Denise's systems is with two questions that the client answers, not us, the practitioner, the consultant. It's the client needs to know, is it something that they actually use? And is it something that they actually love? And if it's something that they use, like a can opener, okay? They use their can opener, so it's not clutter. Unless that can opener has some negative connotations to it, and then we'll talk about that in a minute. So if they use it, then it's not clutter. And if they love it, then it's not clutter. However, there's times where you can just have too much stuff for the space, and it's stuff that they love and use, but perhaps it's not stored correctly in the sense that it's not honored, or perhaps it's in the wrong place in the house, which, if the can opener for some reason is in the bedroom, that looks like clutter. Maybe they took it in there because they feed their cat in the bedroom and they opened the can. They might have their whole reason why it's there. But when there's just stuff that isn't in the place where it's supposed to live in the house, it feels like clutter. And that might be the part where that professional organizing aspect, the eyes of where should things live in the home might come in. Can you share some stories, Dorena, of just things that people have had in their home that weren't necessarily clutter, but where organizing really did help?
I think that's important. I think like the first step in organizing for me is always, I have the Sesame Street song go in my head all the time. One of these things doesn't belong. And so before you do anything, before you know whether it's clutter, before you know whether to let go of it or keep it, it really is organizing things into sorting. It's the sorting process. And so if somebody does have a lot of things, it is putting like things together and then figuring out where they belong. Because you might say, yeah, this one can opener is not clutter, but all of a sudden when you sort things and you bring the one from the garage because you fed the cat out there yesterday and then you fed it in the kitchen the other day, and you all of a sudden you bring all of them together, you realize you have 4 can openers, and like, okay, now you don't need 4. So I think that's the piece for me. It's that sorting piece, which is really an organizational piece that allows you to see how much of something you have and like, oh, do I really use all 4 of these? Or am I not organized in a way that the part of organization is when you put something away and you take it out with ease, like you store it so that it's in a way that's accessible, it's logical, and it has enough space around it that you're not shoving it in so that every time you go to take it out, you're knocking everything else out. That's the organization piece that allows you to put it in and take it out with ease. And then to have that, you're like, oh, okay, I don't need 4 of them around the house. Like maybe they don't have negative energy, but it's just, it becomes that organizational piece.
I was going to add, it's my belief that everything we have has an energy, a life force, right? It's not just that our homes have a energy or spirit, or the trees outside, like our stuff does too, right? And that if your stuff, your items that you use and love, aren't treated in a way like they don't have a home where they live. Their home is not just somewhere in your house. Like the can opener should have an address of top drawer, right-hand side kitchen, right? And that's where it lives. And so by having every object in your home have a place where it lives, its energy shines brighter. And whenever it's not crammed up against its neighbors in an overpopulated drawer, like every object gets to shine, which uplifts the energy of the home even more. So that's an aspect I love of organizing, that, you know, as you were saying, when you actually put all the like items together and discover, whether it's can openers or you discover that somehow you've accumulated 15 white tank tops in your closet, and maybe you don't really need 15, and you can weed that down. And so that every item in that closet, even though, like, in terms of looking pretty, right? The doors are shut, nobody's seeing the closet, but the energy is still there, right? It's not just about shoving things in a space. It's about creating every space, every drawer, every closet, every space, so the items in there just sing and are happy. Do you have any tips for people in that organizing step?
I think the first step really is, it's the sorting, and then it's the letting go piece. And then, you know, and organizing does so have a space, because that's the aesthetic piece, mm-hmm. Right? Like even if you've cleared everything out, if you don't take it to that next space, it's what we see. And I think that's the honor piece, the honor and the aesthetics of the organizing. As far as organizing, for me, it's like things together. It's a lodge. So that's one, you know, having all the same things in the same spot is having where you use them. So pick where you want to feed your cat, you know, and then make sure you have those supplies in that space. Mm-hmm. So those are 2 kind of quick ones. And, you know, to the tank tops, it's when you put them all together, then you look at, do I wear all of them? And the answer may be yes, you know, once you have them organized. It may be, am I holding on to them because I feel like I'm never going to get a new one? You know, so you can look at that piece of it too. But I do, like you said, I think the organizing piece comes at the end of it all.
Yes.
And then you can look at making things come in and out easy. Like, I think that's when we start cramming, giving things space to breathe is probably the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. Because then you can take them in and out easy. And they feel good and you feel good.
Yes. Okay, I know that you were going to share some tips for all of the practitioners here. And everybody here is an energy worker, right? We're all working, understanding that there's a deeper realm than just the physical. And some tips to help them in their space or to looking in their space.
I think as kind of going back to the entrepreneur, because we all, chances are, have our own business, or we're, you know, that's the space we're working on. And a lot of us we work out of our homes. So our homes and our offices become one and the same. And so it's really looking at, so you look at the front right corner of your home as the travel and helpful people. Well, that's getting your message out into the world. So what I like to look at is like, okay, let's look there and say, is there any blocks? Are there any energy leaks of getting your message out into the world? And then you look at the creativity area and say, okay, that's all about starting and finishing projects. So when I hear somebody say like, oh, for me, I'll call myself out, I keep writing that blog, but never finishing it. Or I sit there and stare at a blank piece of paper for 5 hours. Like, what's that about? And then looking in the creativity area, it's looking at your relationship area and saying, okay, those are my one-on-one relationships. So from a business perspective, how are my client relationships? So that's kind of how I've been really working with people, and then finding out where they're feeling stuck. And then I'll tell you a quick story of, I was working with somebody and she said, and this is kind of the 1 hour in and out, like a burst of realization. And then for all of us, we can kind of take it and run with it, because we know the clutter clearing, we know the energy work behind it, but sometimes it's just the awareness is all we need, somebody to hold the space for us. So I was working with a woman who, none of this is new to her. This is all very familiar. And she said, I'm stuck on getting this marketing program out. I'm not marketing. I'm not marketing my marketing program. And it was supposed to be a group of people she was wanting to gather together. So I look at her house from the outside, is where we started. And I noticed that there's a right section of her house that's cut out. I'm like, oh, okay. So note to self, travel and helpful people, getting her message out. And so I asked her, do you feel like you received support? Oh, no, I don't. Oh, okay. So now I have the two pieces, like she's not feeling supported and she's not getting her message out. So what can we do? And then so I just said, for kicks and giggles, actually before that I said, tell me where you sit on your front porch. And she said, oh, I sit over here on the left. And that's the knowledge area. And I know how book smart she is. She's very intellectual. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. That's where she's sitting. And so that's when I said, well, kicks and giggles, can you just flip-flop your seating arrangement? And can you sit on this right-hand side of your porch? Can you make your seating area on the right-hand side? And she said, actually, I'm messing up my story here. I asked her why she wasn't sitting over there before I asked her to switch it. And she said, oh, because I don't like to talk to people. Because there's an alleyway there. And I kind of said, like, I think we're done. I think that just like solved your problem. You have a marketing program, you want to market it, but you don't want to talk to people. That's when we flip-flopped and said, okay, can you sit over here? So can we shift the energy so that you're bringing energy to this space where you actually might want to talk to people? And 48 hours later, she texted me and said, I have had 2 strangers ring my doorbell in the past day. And she said, and nobody ever rings my doorbell. And then I had the long lost friend who I hadn't talked to in a long time called me. So that's how it shifted. So it's really helping people, energy workers, healers, entrepreneurs, just be that second set of eyes and say, okay, I'm wanting this in my life. I'm wanting to move forward here. Like, where's the block? Mm-hmm. Help me find the block. Because then as the clutter clearer, as all of the energy stuff we do, we can go do it. Like we know how to do that piece, but sometimes it just takes that extra set of eyes.
It does. And it's really hard to do for yourself. But one of the things we wanted to do with this teleconference is give some people some tips, which we're doing, right? On maybe looking at their space. And so I thought I'd share a tip, and then I figured maybe you could share a tip, and then I know you have an offer for people too. So what I wanted to share with people is in terms of looking at your business and using the concepts of clutter clearing within your own business to maybe see if there's something that's blocking you from going to the next step forward or holding you back on something. And it's something that I work on all the time, I'll say. No, I should work on it all the time, but it turns out I only do it like once a year when I'm pulling out records for tax purposes, right? And then I go, oh, look at my filing system. Look at all the paperwork that I'm holding on to. And not just the paperwork that I'm holding on to, but the way I've organized it. And again, I use the concepts of feng shui in everything. So the organization of my filing system, I realized that over the years, my business had changed, right? When I first started as a feng shui and space clearing practitioner a long time ago, my client files for feng shui and space clearing clients were in my abundance area of my office filing cabinet system, which was great because that is where I wanted my main income to come. I came from an IT background, and so as I was bridging from corporate world to feng shui practitioner, space clearing consultant, I started a website business where I did websites for various clients. And so they also lived in that filing cabinet. And that was great because that was also income that I was working on. And then whenever I became certified as a teacher, I had a different filing cabinet for those clients and their records and those classes. And when I was working am working as a soul coaching practitioner, but running groups, those groups were in this other filing cabinet. And then organizational stuff for interior alignment, soul coaching, and it's those things. They ended up in a filing cabinet that was more in my self-knowledge area because I was trained in those, and it just, that's where that was. Well, over time, I just, you get used to filing things where you file things. But over the years, my business had shifted. It was much more about teaching and less about the individual clients. Not that I don't love working with them, but I realized one day when I was filing, I was like, really, classes should be here and organization support should be here. And, my family of clients should maybe be more in the family area. And things that represent certifications, knowledge, all of those things, they go over there. So I spent a day and I shifted my filing system. And it was fascinating what happened. Things started to really shift in my business. I was doing the same marketing, doing the same kinds of things that I always did. But the shift in the balance of where I wanted the clients and income really shifted. The biggest thing is I made that decision also at that time that my website clients, and I love them, they're like little small businesses around here. But that really wasn't my focus anymore. And I was just as happy to have them find another way to do websites. I'm happy to help them, but happy if I wasn't. And so I shifted them like completely out of my office, right? They went and lived in another filing cabinet out in the storage room. And interestingly enough, over the next year, most all of those clients shifted away and either decided to do their own WordPress site that I helped them with and they could go on, or something else. So I manifested the structure of how I wanted my income to come in just from shifting the filing cabinet. I also released Clutter, right? So in the sense that the website clients were people that I liked them. They're great clients. I appreciated them. but that wasn't how I wanted to spend my time in the future. So I took them out of my space completely. And that energy ripple continued. So even though all the files were all organized, they were in there, it was that taking that time to go through them and see, is this really what I want my business to be about? Is this really what I want to keep the energy up in my office? So that was a clutter clearing, reorganizing, feng shui tip that I have for you. Take a look at what you're keeping. And I know a lot of people don't keep paper anymore. I'm still a paper person. I like to have a folder. I like to write notes. I like to write them in color, okay, and keep them that way. But when somebody's not active anymore, then I either release them in a different way. Sometimes I will burn them and offer thanks and gratitude. Sometimes I will shred them and then burn the shredding. Always offering thanks and gratitude for everything that I've gotten from somebody. So that's my tip. I'm going to turn it over to you, Dorena. What's some tips you have for people?
I think I'm going to piggyback on your tip because it was such a good one. And I saw mine in where it showed up for me the most is in my fame and reputation area, and which is how you want to be known. And so I think that's so like how we want to be seen, what we want our reputation to be, is such an integral piece. And so when we can look at that and see what's in that space, it's fascinating. And from a business perspective, I realized literally, so, in feng shui, you can lay the Bagua mat over your house, over a room, over your desk, over your entire property. When I did that, every single one had kids in it. And so I realized I wanted to be known as a mom, but like to step out in that space, I really needed to shift that. So, my tip is really to look at that space and see what it says about you and because what I like to tell people all the time is our homes have to evolve as we evolve, because we're not stagnant beings. We keep growing and evolving, and that onion layer, layers of onions peel away. And so our homes need to shift with us. And so a lot of times we put money into the decorating and the organizing and saying, okay, we close the door like it's done, like we don't need to do it. But in actuality, we need to keep revisiting it. So I think that space is always a good one to say, oh, this is what's anchored here. This is how I'm being known. Is that what I want right now in my life? Or has my life shifted because my kids have grown and are in college or out of the house, and I can shift that.
Beautiful. Can you tell me a little bit, you wrote, and I don't have my email on this computer or I would reference it, but you have a fabulous offer you want to give everybody at the LuAnn Academy. Can you tell everybody about it?
Yeah, I referenced a little bit. I have a house whisperer session, and it's like the easy peasy 1 hour to really say, like, is there an area that you want to move forward? Is there something that you want to bring in? And then to be able that I can come in and just see, is there any place that is actually keeping you stuck from moving towards that? And so what I'm offering is, because I actually happen to live in North Carolina, and we, as you probably are well aware, had a lot of damage from Hurricane Florence. Where I live, the hurricane actually veered off and we had very minimal damage here. But so I'm donating 20% of all of the cost of the House Whisperer session is going to hurricane relief and creating what we call flood buckets for mucking out houses, which is part of what happens after your house has been flooded. And then so I'd like to extend that to everybody. It was through September 30th, but I will extend it to anybody from LuAnn Academy for the end of the year to be able to do that. So I feel like it's a 2-for-1. You get a second set of eyeballs on your house, and you get to help somebody whose house was damaged and destroyed.
That is so wonderful. And, I love whenever we can give back, and I love that whenever we can also support each other. We have such a brain trust within the LuAnn Academy. And so, I would encourage you all to think about working with Dorena on taking a look at your space. If you're feeling like, if any of the things that we talked about here, like you're like, ooh, yeah, maybe I do need some assistance in just identifying what's going on. Or maybe it's like, I think I've got it all, but I'm still feeling blocked and I don't get why. It's that extra set of eyes that can really help. And I know that Dorena is really, really an expert in this area. And you, as she said, you can do it and feel good that you're giving back to people. What I would like to do is, I don't know, Dorena, did you have any other topics that I'm missing that we didn't talk about?
No, I think that that's it. It's I think it's in conversation with other people. You know, we so often think like we can do everything ourselves, like we know it and we can do it, and that's where I'm guilty of that, right? But it's all in community with other people, and I think that's what this is all about. Is just allowing other people to, like I always know what I'm saying when I say it. Like I don't know what I think until I actually say it. And so when I can have a conversation with somebody, I can see it so much more clearly, and then we can take action. And for me, it always starts in our house.
It does. It does. Okay, so what I would like to do, bear with me to see if I'm able to manage it. I'm going to unmute everybody. And so just giving you all the heads up, I'm going to unmute. So if you are listening live and I unmute you and you still want to be muted, you're going to have to do that yourself. But I want to unmute, and I'm going to turn it on to gallery so that people who have their video on will be able to see you. So just giving you a heads up on that. But that way, if you want to ask any questions or share any of your own clutter stories, we would love to hear it. So hold on. We're going to unmute. Okay, there's unmuting. And I'm going to turn it on to gallery so that if you are here and you want to share anything, I have you all unmuted. And I guess you get to turn on your own video is how it works. I'm looking at it. But did anybody have any questions or any stories they want to share? Oh, everybody's quiet.
You know, the question I always get from people a lot is, what do I do? Because two of the areas that people are always focused on, you know, it's like money and relationships, money and love. I want more money, I want a better relationship, and then lamenting of like, oh, my relationship is in my bathroom, or my relationship area is in my bathroom, or it's the closet, or it's something that I can't change. And it's not about the area that it is, because not that many of us, like some I know do, but not very many of us can actually design a house or have designed a house so that it's perfectly feng shuied. But it's really accepting where something is and honoring it. And you can make your bathroom sparkly clean, you know, without clutter. It doesn't matter what's in it. You can always increase the energy in it.
That's a perfect tip. I mean, I know I have a lot of people who, or clients, who are always concerned about where's the bathroom? I heard it was bad. Or where, you know, where should I put the garbage can or the cat litter box, right? Well, those are all things that are a part of our life. They're not necessarily bad. I personally love indoor plumbing and bathrooms, so I would not want it to not be in my house. And again, it's how you keep and honor the space. It's how you keep and honor the objects in the space. And do they feel like they have an energy that brings you down? Then that's something to evaluate. Even if it's an energy that, I'm not saying the cat litter box is something you look at and brings your energy up, but heck, your cat needs it. So, you know, all of those things are important in their way. Hey, Elizabeth, you turned your video on. Hi.
Hi there. I had a question.
Yeah.
I am now, trying not to be totally excited about it, but I am an empty nester.
Oh my God.
So I have 3 daughters who are all off on their own academic experiences. And the thing that I'm thinking about is something I've never really had to contemplate, because when I did college, I wasn't in a feng shui place, but I have these 3 people now who have 2 residences. And I am noticing a lot of like shift and split when the girls are at college versus when they come home. And as a mom, I'm trying to keep the place for them to maintain their more adult status when they come back to their childhood home. But I a little bit think they need to release some of their childhood things from their childhood room so they can be more adult in this space where they grew up. So it has started me thinking about that two residents thing. You know, I've never had a second residence that I've thought of. Can you, either one of you, speak to that a little bit?
I can tell you that I'm living it and I'm right there with you. And it's fascinating to be in it. When I do it for clients, it's one thing. When I do it for me, I mean, it's the same thing, but so I always find there's a boundary issue in there, because a lot of times that's where I pick up when I have clients who say like they're holding their adult children's stuff and they don't want to get rid of it. There tends to be boundary issues and letting their kids grow up. So it's always a good conversation around that. But I know it's interesting. My daughter just, she's a junior in college, and she actually went to her child. I had always wanted her to like clear out more stuff. And what was interesting is this summer she went to do it, and she's a competitive swimmer, and she started throwing away her medals and her ribbons. And I was like, no, wait, you can't do that. Like I seriously panicked. Like, why are you letting that stuff go? And she said, Mom, I know I'm a fast swimmer. I don't need this to tell me that. She said, I kept the one that's most important to me. I was like, oh, that's so mature of you. But so it's a process. Now, my oldest one, he is fully out. Like, I feel like the college is that intermediary where you don't want them to feel like they don't have a home, like they don't have because all their space where they are is temporary. It's a dorm or it's an apartment. And so they have kept their childhood stuff at home. The stuff but I've kind of said, hey, look, I'm going to move, and I don't want to move your stuff that you don't want. So that's kind of like let's let go of the stuff that you don't want in another house, but I'm going to hold on until you're in a permanent house. But when you're in a permanent residence, then all your stuff is going with you. So that's kind of because I didn't want to I feel like this is still their permanent home.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, and I recognize that, but also when I think about, they have sort of an academic residence where they are, when they're in college, when they're at school, they have their academic stuff, and they look at their little bagua and they do their little, except for one who doesn't feng shui. The others will look at their bagua and try to set up their college room. And I noticed that the balance is interesting, because it's almost, like you were saying, a house balance. If you can't change one corner of your home because it's somebody else's space, you can perhaps address that opposite corner to try to balance the energy. And I noticed that the kids will often have their children and creativity stronger in their home bedroom, and their, travel and knowledge stronger in their college bedroom. And I'm wondering if there isn't a way to encourage them to balance each space a little more, or if you actually live in two spaces like that, if that's, I don't know, somehow to me it seems disjointed, but I'm like a turtle. I like to have my home on my back and go around with it everywhere. But are there people who maybe can do that and split house balance like that?
Yeah, I'll pop in. I had a client this summer who was talking about exactly the same thing. Both of her kids were out of college, were going to be going out of college at the time they were back home for the summer. And she had called because she noticed that when they were off at college, everybody got along well. And when they were back for the summer, old patterns between the brother and sister of arguments and childish behavior happened when they came back home. Now, you could just say that it's because they're in the home where that was the pattern. But in looking at their bedrooms hadn't changed since they were 8 years old, right? I mean, not significantly. And so for both of them, I worked with both the I don't want to call them kids, the young adults, and what their mission, what their goals were. It was interesting that the mom who talked to me didn't realize that was their mission and goals, because she had told me what she felt their mission and goals were. And I said, that's great. I need to talk to them if we're working in their space, because these aren't children, right? These are young adults out making their way in the world. And so working with both of them, I encourage those young people to clutter clear by looking at, do you love it? Do you use it? Is it something that is a memory of a good time, right? There's a lot of memories in those rooms. Not all of them actually had memories of good times, because there was, you know, a divorce and a dad who was not as, had disappointed those kids in how he had acted, and he would give them stuff to make up for it. So that stuff that he gave them was more of a reminder of what he wasn't there for in their life. And so anyway, we worked a lot on that, and they ended up, the stuff they wanted to keep as their memory stuff from childhood. The mom went out and bought nice like trunks, and they packed that stuff in there. And then those trunks actually got stored in the basement, which is, the basement in the home is representative of the past, the subconscious. And those trunks are ready to go, so that when they get their permanent home, out they go. And then what was left in the space, we used that to support their goal of where they're going in the future, right? And so for the one young man, he was taking a career in nursing. So it was like, not put up pictures of nurses in the room, but things that felt like it was about helping, because that was his thing. He wanted to help people. So imagery talking about help people. He also very much wanted to do that in order to be compensated and live a nice life. So I'm like, yeah, put things that represent that nice life, the car you want, the travel you want, those kinds of images, so that even though you're not here, it's a template for it. So yes, when you have more than one place, and this is for kids at college, it's also for people who have a home and a vacation home, that you want to pay attention to both of those things and what you have set up, so that it doesn't feel as disjointed when you're going from one place to the other. I don't know, does that help at all?
That does, thank you.
That was great, because I remember hearing you say, and it's actually on my project list, is that when kids, a lot of times if somebody is saying that their kids seem more childish than is age appropriate, and looking at the pictures, and there's pictures of when they're 4 and 5 and they're 16. And so how important it is to update the pictures that are in your home. So, and it's funny because we have, I'm going to go read in the kids' bedroom. Again.
The family portrait, now that everyone is grown up, I took down those baby pictures just for that very reason.
Yeah.
Photos are important. And, you know, sometimes as we're doing our clutter check in our home, again, in our own home, we're used to them being, we love them when they were that little baby, but we're holding an energy pattern of that. And so taking a look at the photos, maybe some of the photos need to go in an album and get stored, and more up-to-date photos can be really powerful. Again, photos, we really want to make sure that when we have a photo of somebody up in their space, it's not just that they look good, okay? It has to also be a time in their life where they were feeling good. So somebody might have, a photo, like maybe a kid's graduation photo, right? Their senior year portrait. But maybe they were going through a lot of angst because there was disruption within their friends, and their boyfriend just broke up with them. Who knows, right? That at the time of that photo, they looked great, but their life was in chaos. Having that photo up is an energy pattern of what was going on in their life at that time. So really understanding that, and even like looking at those photos, is really important. Oh my gosh, it is almost, our hour is up. And Dorena, I want to thank you so much for being on our teleconference today. Any final things you want to share with people?
No, it's just always good to be with you. And I'm going to up my pictures on my project list It's those things that you know, as you know that you need to do, but it's really highlighting the patterns and the relationships behind them.
It does. And for everybody who's been here live today, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate that. And for those listening in later, and you could be listening in a long time in the future, but that's super cool. It doesn't matter. I hope that today's hour gave you some ideas of things to look at in your own space, because the more you empower yourself, the more you will be able to do your mission in life, going out and empowering others. And that's what we're all born to do, right? We're all here to walk our path and understand ourselves so that we can blossom more to help others. I just want to share briefly that there's going to be a special offer for those people who are Shining Star members, that are Shining Star members of either any one of your certification programs, or if you're a Spotlight member, I'm going to be offering my Arrange for Success program that I feel really strongly about. I've gotten so many people writing to me about how it really shifted their business. Part of it is clutter clearing, part of it is feng shui, part of it is the law of attraction, and part of it is just marketing now, what you need to do to market yourself. And I'll be making some announcements on that in the various groups, but I'm excited about it because it's just something I am offering for free to anybody who's a Shining Star member. So anyway, until next month, where we have another fabulous type of conference coming for you. If you have ideas again on future teleconferences you'd like to see, please let me know and we will find somebody to talk about that. All right, everybody, thank you so much. I'm going to turn off the recording. Bye-bye.
Bye.